Good morning. It's Pastor Martin, coming to you from the beauty of my backyard. I'd like to continue our reading from the book Little Leaders, Bold Women in Black History by Vashti Harrison. This morning I'd like to read two stories, one about Alice Ball, who was born in 1892 and died in 1916. Both Alice's mother and grandfather were photographers, and as a child she developed an interest in the chemicals used in photography. She went to college in her hometown of Seattle and earned not one, but 2 degrees in pharmaceutical chemistry and pharmacy. What an accomplishment for a young woman. At the time, most of the African American population in the city was employed in service professions, cleaning homes or making food, for example. But Alice defied expectations and her circumstances by seeking an education and a career in science. In 1915, Alice became the first woman and the first African American to graduate with a master's degree from the University of Hawaii. While working on her thesis, she developed what would become the leading treatment for leprosy, a serious, incurable disease. She found a way for oil from the seed of the chalmugra tree to be absorbed in the bloodstream. This treatment became the primary method that would be used until the 1940s, but for a long time no one knew Alice was the inventor. Less than 2 years after the discovery, Alice died, and the director of her program took credit for her findings. Alice's method became known as the Dean method. It wasn't until the 1970s that historians unearthed the truth, and worked to ensure that Alice got credit for her important discovery. On February 29, 2000, the University of Hawaii recognized her for her work and dedicated a plaque to her on the only chalmugra tree on the school's campus. That day, the Lieutenant Governor of Hawaii declared February 29, Alice Ball Day. Secondly, I'd like to read a story about Bessie Coleman, who was born in 1892 and died in 1926. Bessie grew up in a small, segregated town in Texas. At home, with 3 younger siblings around, she had a lot of responsibilities. Washing clothes by hand, fetching clean water, on top of walking 4 miles to school and back every day. Bessie knew that one day she would leave her small town. In 1915, she moved to Chicago to live with her older brothers. Returning from World War I, they told her all about being in France and how the women there could fly planes, unlike the women in America. This got Bessie curious, furiously curious. She applied to every aviation school in America she could find, but was denied entry. No one at any of these schools thought a girl could fly, especially not a black girl. Bessie wanted to prove them wrong. In 1920, she moved to France, where she could finally learn aviation. She was so gifted she graduated from the 10-month flight school in only 7 months. So in 1921, Bessie became the first African-American woman in the world to receive her pilot's license. She specialized in stunt flying, parachuting, and aerial tricks. After returning home to the United States, Bessie flew for huge crowds. She was very popular among both white and black Americans and stood up against segregation and discrimination whenever she could. She hoped to open her own flight school to teach other girls of color how to fly. Unfortunately, during a show in 1926, a mechanical issue caused her plane to crash. Bessie passed away, but her legacy lives on. In 1977, the Bessie Coleman Aviators Club opened in Chicago to support women of all races to reach their dreams of flying.